Yeah, I saw Rick popped up. Welcome,
There
Rick.
you go.
We're just ribbing up here.
We're having fun, Rick. I'm glad you came out.
Yeah, I've been listening. I was doing something else, so I couldn't join as speaker until I finished something. I was doing something on the computer, but
Okay,
yeah,
I
it
got a
sounds like
question
you
for
guys
you,
having
Rick.
fun.
I've never asked you this. What's the craziest story, true or not, email, whatever? Just that one of them. Just I know there's a lot of. I mean, just tell us a crazy story where it was like you just couldn't. You just thought this person might be delusional, but you weren't sure. One of those kind of stories. Can you tell us one of those stories, Rick?
Oh God, yeah, many of them. While I
Any
was
recent?
working, while I
Oh,
was
go ahead.
working,
Anytime we're working or
oh,
now, even more modern might be more interesting. I mean, like I'm sure you're getting even more attention now than ever before. So you're probably getting inundated with these people. I mean, you could probably form a team of these people. I'm guessing at this point.
well, I think one of the weirdest was at a UFO convention some years ago. This husband and wife approached me, and I did a lecture on something, and it was after I left the stage, and I was doing autographs and talking to people. I had a table there with actually Grant Cameron and I had a table together. Anyways, this couple came up to me and they started telling me the story that happened to them. Now, these are probably the couple were probably in their 50s, and this story they told me was years before. He worked for a gas company. He was a natural gas line inspector in Kansas, and she had a salon. She had a small salon, her and her sister, and so they were the guy was out in the gas line checking the gas line or out there because there's a suspected leak. And this was like it wasn't far from Fort Leavenworth, not the base, but the town. There's a town of Fort Leavenworth in the upper uh, uh, northeast corner of Kansas. Anyways, he finds a leak. He gets out and he's examining it. And this is kind of a remote area, he said, and all of a sudden he sees these two people walking towards him. But he says when they're not walking, they're just they're moving, and he thought they were on something because he could only see because of the pipeline. He was on one side of it, and they were on the other side of it. And he thought they were on some kind of roller skates or something. But as he moved closer to the pipeline, he realized that these people were floating too, and they didn't look like aliens. They looked like human beings, just regular humans. And he was stunned, and they stopped, and they stared at him for he said 10-15 seconds before they said anything, and they asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Well, there's a gas line leak here, so you shouldn't be, don't smoke or don't use anything flammable." And they didn't understand what he was talking about, and they didn't understand what a gas line was. And so as they got closer to him, he realized that they were wearing a one-piece uh, outfit, like a flight suit, although it didn't have any buttons or zippers or anything, but it had little bubbles on the sleeves, like almost like shoulder pads. And as he got closer to him, he realized they were a male and a female, and they at least the one looked more feminine than the other guy. That's what he told me. And so he asked him. He asked these two, "What are you doing out here?" He said, "We wanted to contact you because we're part of you." And so he thought, "Wow, what are they talking about?" So to make a long story short, they said that they are they are him and his wife, because they started talking about his wife, who wasn't there. She was at her beauty salon, miles and miles away, and they started talking about his wife. His wife's name was Christy, yeah, Christy, and his name was David. And so he said, well, how do you know Christy, my wife? Because we are you from the future. And he said, what? And now before this, he had nothing to do with UFOs, didn't believe in him, didn't talk about him, had really nothing to do much with him. He said about the closest I ever came with the UFO was watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And so he tells him this story. These two aliens, or people from the future, tells David a story of what's going to happen. And then they leave. So David goes home and we got off work and talks to Christy, and he tells Christy the story. Well, she thinks he's nuts. But the next day, exactly what this couple from the future told him was going to happen regarding an accident with a car had happened. And I thought that was probably one of the weirdest stories I'd ever heard. There's a lot more to it, but that's basically the gist of it, that these two came back from the future to tell themselves what was going to happen the next day, which I thought was, I mean, they could be making it up, but I don't, they were sincere to me. And why would they pick me out and tell me this story if it didn't have some sort of fact to it?
Yeah,
That's a
generally
great
people
story.
like that, they're pretty well grounded. Like they're not going to go out of their way to bullshit. So they're just simple people, man.
Yeah, Rick, this is Mr. Cotter here. Nice to meet you. Heard you have many spaces in the last year, but we were talking before. Maybe you heard when you were listening in. We were talking about that case in Long Island. Were you familiar with that at all?
Did you ever come and study the Hudson Valley situation, Rick?
Well, that was a Long Island. That was Long
Was
Island.
that the Hudson
Oh, Long
Valley
Island.
or
Yeah, yeah, it was the Long Island UFO Club, and the gentleman's. I put it in the purple pill. It's the guy's name was John.
Or
What's his name here? I'm sorry, John Ford. And they arrested him and put him in a mental institution in Long Island. He had a UFO club back in the 80s. There was apparently some kind of crash site there. He was making so much noise with the local politicians. The conspiracies, they set him up and put him away. You familiar with that story?
no? I don't. I'm not familiar with the Long Island. I'm familiar with the Suffolk County
Yeah, that's Suffolk County.
case.
Yeah, that's Suffolk County.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. 'Cause I
yeah.
just
There's that one, and then there's the Hudson Valley case, with two different cases.
right. We're
One
Hudson Valley.
happened in about 80 something 4, and the other happened, I think, earlier. Yeah, I understand the Suffolk County case. Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. They just put it on Hulu. Well, I don't know about just. I was telling the gang here. I watched it the other night. It's a series on Hulu, and it's one of the episodes. It's what's the name of the series here? Light. It's called Lights Over Long Island on Hulu's Out There Crimes of the Paranormal. And as we were just kind of like lamenting over it, none of us have ever heard it before.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard that of that case. I mean, I didn't investigate it or anything, but I heard of it. Yeah, that was an interesting case. Both of them, the Hudson Valley and the Long Island case, were interesting cases.
What was the Hudson Valley case? Because I mean, I know there's a lot of sightings in Hudson Valley, right? But is there a specific case you're referring to? I'm maybe not aware of that, the importance of it.
The Hudson Valley case was a case where I can't remember.
Was it like a flap, Rick? Like a flap that went on for an extended period of time, or
Yeah, it started like in the first part of '83, and I might get the dates wrong. '83, and went through about 18 months to like the summer of 84, or maybe it was 82 and 83. And it was also called a Westchester County case, lights or something like that. Anyways, it was like a boomerang UFO that was sighted all during this time period, periodically. And a lot of people thought it was a hoax, but there was the Center for UFO Studies. I can't think of the guy's name. Phil is his first name. Really looked into it, and there was a state trooper, New York State trooper, who also investigated it. In fact, he spoke. This trooper, and I can't remember his name. I believe he was a lieutenant. Spoke at a UFO convention some years later about it. And initially, they thought it was a hoax, and that there were a group of planes, single-engine planes, flying and making this circle or half circle of lights in the night sky. But then they later got a hold of the airport, the closest airport. I can't remember where that was, but in that area. And with the PF, and they got the hold of the FAA, and they found out that they didn't have any planes flying in that area. And so, yeah, it's quite a case. I don't remember everything about it, but I remember the lecture that the what's his name? I should know his name. Peter Gersten. Peter Gersten, who was he organized CAUSE, which was Citizens Against UFO Secrecy. He was an attorney. He did a investigation on the subject, and there's probably a lot more to it. I mean, I'm sure if you Google it, I think it's the Hudson Valley Lights case or something like that. But that was a pretty good case. And okay, I'm looking at yeah, I just Google it. 1984 Hudson Valley UFO sighting happened in 1984, from 83 to 84 in eastern New York State along the Hudson River and western Connecticut.
Rick, real quick,
So
is that the same time frame when that alleged politician was abducted out of their building, or was that a different time story?
No, that was different. That was in the 90s, 93 or 4.
But not too far away from Hudson Valley, or
no, that
quite
was
away.
New York City. That was New York City. It was right in New York City that incident happened, where the people were saw floating out of windows.
Yeah, it was a lady. Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Moore did it. Bill Moore investigated that, even though he was
really
pretty much out of it. But Bill Moore went and did a whole article in his Focus newsletter. So if you go back, and I think you can still find him. In fact, somebody just told me that they found him. But you can go back and find that article about it. And Bill went out there along with Stan Friedman and some of the other people and investigated that. And there were a lot of witnesses that saw these people.
Hey, can you arrange, Rick, like if we're going to make a movie in the future, I want to play the character of Bill Moore. I can pull that off. I'm serious. I can wear the glasses. I'll grow my beard out a little bit and let it get gray, because it's already kind of gray anyway. I'll be the new school, and I already know its story, so I could probably nail that.
Well, you got to be a Jekyll and Hyde, because Bill can be an asshole at times. And I guess you could be an asshole at times too.
Yeah, you
got to keep them guessing. You got to keep them guessing. You never want them to think one way or the other. That's how I work. That's how I operate. Keep them guessing.
Right. Yeah.
Rick, Doctor, I got a quick question for you. So I recently have seen you on the Disclosure series on Gaia. So I kind of got to know who you were in the last year. I was telling everybody before, I'm kind of on the fringe of all this. I don't really know the history. I'm just kind of been fascinated with it. I grew up where I grew up and saw whatever people knew things and whatever. Anyway, but back in 17, it was 17 or 18, 2016, 17. It was one of those years. We watched on Gaia, like there was the Disclosure series, and we got so infatuated with it. We started like episode one season one, and went to like season 14, 15. I forget what it was, and we just couldn't get enough of it. I mean, everything from it was back in 2016 or 17 or something like that. Everything from the um, you know, remote viewing to just that they were talking about the 20 and back, like all these topics that from a spiritual standpoint and like, being on the into the metaphysical and paranormal, like, and open-minded to it all, it was like, oh my God, it was like drinking from a fire hose, and it was fascinating. I couldn't get enough of it. Um, but then after X amount of years went by. Last year, or the year before, we went back to our Gaia subscription. They're like, oh, okay. So, and we went back to the Disclosure series, and it seems like they edit out a shit ton of seasons or different episodes within seasons. Is that accurate to say? Because I can't find the original, and you might not know this. I know you're just, you're one of the stars, guests, whatever you want to call it, that has a lot of experience with this in this industry, so to speak. But like, I don't know if you might not know the answer to that, but it seems like they deleted a lot of stuff that was really juicy in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. Do you know anything about that?
Well, there are archives within the Gaia website, and you can go back and look in the archives. The only ones that they deleted were the cosmic disclosures with Wilcox and Corey Good. All those episodes have been deleted, but my episodes, Cosmic Disclosure with Emery Smith, they're still all there. There's 168 of them or something. You just have to go back and look at the different seasons in the archives. But the ones that were deleted pertain to Corey Good.
Okay.
And they were all
Because
deleted because they had a heck of a scandal there with him, and they ended up suing him and winning a judgment against him and so forth. So those are the only ones that I know were deleted.
right. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'll look at the archive. Who's the guy that you have the conversations with? What's his name again?
Emery Smith.
Yeah, I like Emery Smith, and he was on the original, like I don't know, I call it the original series, whatever. But he has a fascinating story. I mean, I remember watching episodes back in like 17 of him talking about like he was, on a spaceship in another whatever, and he's in a room and they're doing like I don't want to say surgery, but some kind of medical situation, and he's next to some kind of bug alien, and they're all mental telepathy talking around the table, and that was just I was like sitting at the TV going, what, this is like Star Wars, ET and times 50, right? um you obviously got to know the guy. I mean, he's, to me, he's one of the most fascinating experiencers in all of this. Would you agree with that at all?
No, wait, he's the one that did the jump
Yeah.
room stuff, right?
Yeah, he did that. Yeah. Yeah, Emery has a background in the Air Force, and then in Special Forces. He was a combat medic, and so he had experience doing special operations missions, and then he became uh, a, a medical assistant, or a physician. Excuse me, a physician assistant,
That's right,
and
right.
he
I remember.
assisted in a number of surgeries on extraterrestrials.
Right, and that's what I remember. Like, and again, this is back in 16. This is 9 years ago, or whatever it was. Watching the series, listening to him, like, I walked in the room and there was like, a bug. I don't forget what they call them, but and there's, and they're all using telepathy to speak to with each other. He was explaining that. He was explaining the tools that they had and the energy work they were doing on whatever subject they were working on. And it was just like, whoa. And then when I saw you recently on some of the episodes and Emery's, I was like, oh, that's Emery. I didn't know his name, but I'm like, oh, I know that guy. When I was watching the whole series back in 16 or 17, he was in a lot of the later series or seasons, and I always found him very, very fascinating. So just the fact that you get to hang out with him, and That's some of his stories are mind blowing, and that was like when I first heard of remote viewing and all that stuff was from him and that one particular season. So very cool, man. What a cool life you got.
Thanks.
Connor, you're rugging out.
Yeah, I'm done. I don't know if you heard me, but I was just going on a rant about Emery and Rick's relationship and just Emery's life story. If whatever it is, true or not, it's amazing.
Yeah, I will say that Emery, no doubt, is a very colorful character with many stories of interest, no doubt.
No doubt.
Rick, my question was, I don't know if you watched the Joe Rogan interview with Hal Puthoff. What do you think about what he was discussing on the rollout and the protection for the technology that's about to be coming out? Have you heard anything on this?
Yeah, I've watched it, and yeah, I think that was fascinating. I think he said a lot more than I ever expected Hal to say about the subject because I worked with him from '94 to 2007, and he was intimately involved with DARPA projects dealing with the subject matter, and so he has a lot of knowledge about what he was doing scientifically, and with him and Eric Davis and Professor Carpenter, many and all the other the whole team that worked there, the Institute for Advanced Studies. So I was somewhat surprised that he talked about that subject.
Yeah, the same here, man. I've just kind of like had my ear to the ground, and I figured people would be blowing it up, but I haven't seen much on it. I'm thinking this is the most we've gotten in 5-10 years combined, and no one's speaking on it. So it's a perfect opportunity. I was like, I gotta pick Rick's brain on this, see what you thought. But that was my takeaway. It's like they're prepping for the fallout because it's coming.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It was an interesting interview.
Yeah, I thought so, man. But see,
What
we need
about
more.
what Eric Davis said in that get together with Lou and was it Avi Loeb and Chris Mellon and all that. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, he would know. Lou kind of puzzles me in a way because he certainly had access because him and I talked before. I know that he had access based on what we talked about, and he worked for the Space Force, and he actually wanted me to go to work with him. But then he goes out and tries to he'll show a picture, and he's got caught twice for it of something allegedly a UFO, and then his credibility goes downhill because people proved that it wasn't. So I don't know if he's trying to test people or put him in a position where he could be considered a disinformation person within the government or what. I can't figure that out. I don't know why he would do something like that.
Okay, I got to ask you this, Rick. So during your time during the 80s, let's say, and you guys did whatever it was you had to do because you were ordered to do so. Can you remember a time even close to like what, for example, so now apparently Lou has shown us two pictures that turned out to be very questionable. I mean, was there ever a situation during your time where something happened and it was like, oh, we fucked that up? I would love to know if that's ever happened.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Not necessarily, I'll say the government, not necessarily me, although I made mistakes in different operations by, incorrectly uh, tasking an asset to do something I shouldn't have, or something like that. But the government back in those days, they screwed up a lot of operations, and I remember this one, and although I wasn't directly involved with it, other agents within our uh, 9Q or the special projects branch was involved, where they gave they recruited somebody within the UFO group, and they prepared these photographs to give to this person within the UFO group, hoping that once the photographs were given, then they would run with them and it would create havoc within the UFO community. And I think it was APRO that they were picking on. Like I said, I wasn't directly involved in this, but I knew what other agents were doing. And come to find out, the pictures that the DIA had thought they created, were actually real pictures that somebody within DIA inadvertently sent down there. So we gave this group legitimate UFO pictures of UFOs that only the government had, and told them to run with it. Well, they did. And then once we found it in UFO magazines and so forth, people were saying, "Holy shit, we screwed this operation up." So yeah, there are things like that happened.
That's crazy. I love it. So, there's people out there speculating, okay, that, okay, so there's like three parts to this question, that somehow that they targeted Lou. I'm just telling you what I heard, and they're imagining that they sent this alleged pilot in with this picture to however they orchestrated it to kind of create their own little counterintelligence upon Lou. So he was like the go-between with unknowingly, allegedly, right? So I mean, is that even possible? I mean, can somebody be so tricky? Some other group or agency that like, has anyone ever tried? Let's answer the Lou question. Then I want to know, has anyone ever really tried to trick you like that, where they gave you some bullshit and then you had to run with it? You know what I'm saying?
Well, we had an entity or a group called the Special Means Committee, and they would create the false information, disinformation, and then they would on a particular operation, depending on it was operations, whatever type of operation that we were running, there were always some form of disinformation that had to be given or implemented in this operation. So the Special Means Committee and DIA would create these documents, and they were experts at it. I mean, they created, you couldn't tell the difference. I mean, everything was perfect on the documents, and so there were, and they did it not just UFO cases. They did it in counterespionage operations, whereby we had to give our asset that we sent into the Soviets or East Germans or whoever the country we targeted, it had to be some truth to it. So they would have to mix in truthful information in with disinformation, and they were experts at it. And as so far as the agent in the field, myself, I wouldn't know the difference. I wouldn't know what was real and what wasn't, and so you would run with these things because, again, you'd give it to a source or an asset to do something with. Like, for instance, if you have a source or an asset within a particular UFO group and you wanted them to run with it, you give them some kind of bits of information and let them run with that. And then, they would think everything that you gave them was what the asset gave the group was truth. Now, that backfired a number of times because there's smart people within these UFO groups. When MUFON was created, a lot of people within that UFO within MUFON were ex-military, and some of them ex-intelligence officers, so they could read what they thought was the facts and what they thought was the fiction, and so we had to be very careful. But those things happened at times too. Yes.
So do you think it's possible that Lou twice now has been well, tricked probably isn't the right word, but I mean, I just don't understand. I don't get it. He worked for Hal, didn't he? I'm not going to ask you what he did and all that other stuff, but I mean, he had to be cleared to be like working amongst the top level. To me, it's like this guy has been cleared to work amongst the top level of people in this field. I mean, how can I mean, can these mistakes be forgiven, or do we still want to trust him and listen to him, or what do we do with Lou Elizondo?
That's a good question. That's a question I have asked. What do we do? How do you interpret what Lou did in comparison to what he claims? I mean, he wrote a book. Got it right here, which I've read twice. Really delved into it. There's a lot of information in that book that people within the government could identify as being disinformation. And I'm not going to go into details by line, but I think it's possible that maybe he's working. Maybe there's a mission that we don't know about, and only he knows about it, or whoever he's working for knows about it. So it's kind of
Okay, let me
it's
interrupt. So
difficult to read it.
let's just say as an example that's happening. We're not saying it is or it isn't. And then Chris Mellon is part of this. Him and Chris are pretty tight. So should I assume that if that were the case, whatever the case is, that Chris would know? It wouldn't be like one knew and the other didn't know. And then, so what I also find interesting is they made this big what to do about him, Chris Mellon, allegedly getting deleted off of a Wikipedia. So I mean, so I think, okay, so they're going after Chris Mellon. So, but is that counterintelligence? I mean, is that a setup to make us think that, oh, we need to trust Chris Mellon more because they went after him? I mean, how do you read all that?
It's difficult to read because when a complex counterintelligence operation is being run, it's almost impossible for people on the outside to read it. And sometimes it's even difficult for people on the inside. I mean, when I ran counterintelligence operations, I was just one person. There were a number of other people involved in this operation. I knew what I had to do. I didn't necessarily know what this other person was doing, but we both were reporting up to Carl Dale up in DIA. He knew the entire picture. So sometimes these operations are so complex, an enigma within a conundrum. That's what we used to call it. And so you might not know, what you were doing, but might not know what the agent next to you was doing. And it's created that way to make it complicated and to make it so the people at the lower level, if I wanted to become a double agent and spill my guts, I can only talk about what I know. I don't know what this other guy across the hall from me or in the cubicle from me is doing. So, and there's safeguards built into counterintelligence operations.
So, what do you think about the Mellon getting deleted off of Wikipedia? I mean, just when you first heard that, what went through your mind?
Well, we all know who runs Wikipedia, and so did Mellon piss off somebody, or was it inadvertent? I think he's back on now, but somebody said something in space a day or two ago about, oh, he's back on now. But anyways, maybe it was a wake up call. Maybe somebody wanted to wake up Chris. And Chris is a nice person. He's a nice guy. I mean, I know him. I wouldn't call him a friend, but I know him. He can be very irritable in a conversation if you're sitting in a room and you're trying to discuss something. And we all know this type of person who wants to take over the conversation and steer it all in his direction. But other than that, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, there's lots of personalities and people of money, history, the Mellon family, and even Lou's family. And I mean, you go and your family. I mean, Jesus. I mean, you just go and look. I mean, there's just so much. It's so deep and complex that there really is no simple answer. I think that that's the thing about ufology. I was saying earlier is that we can probably only figure out somewhere around 80% at best, or whatever. I'm just saying, but and even I even mentioned that you wouldn't probably even know 100%, and you've said that before. But as these more whistleblowers come forward, we might get 1% more, or we might get a repeat of the same thing, but it gives us another percent towards that 100. Is that kind of what we're trying to do, or what do you think, Rick?
And yeah, from the outside, and I consider myself an outsider. I'm trying to get disclosure in there into the public, and I think you're right. But everything that we try to do, I look and see there's evidence that the government's trying to stop us. When people get close, like Chris Mellon, for example, maybe he got too close and people shut him down. I'm waiting to see what, because of what Hal said in that interview. I want to see what, if anything, or if anyone goes to him and says, "Hey, Hal, you said too much." I'm waiting for that.
Oh, it's coming, Rick.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. Unfortunately, I think it is coming, but I haven't talked to Hal since that interview, but I plan on it here in the very near future, because as Dr. Dulce knows, we're working on something in the future.
Let's go.
So this would be my question is, so we've got Ratcliffe, and we've got Tulsi, and we've got Patel, and Hegseth, and Trump, and whoever else that I might be leaving out. These are the main players in the intelligence forefront. So if they were going to, let's just say hypothetically that Hal got some pushback, do you think it would come from one of those people that I just mentioned, or would it be coming from somebody or some source above that would then come through them? That's what I'm trying to figure out, is where would the pushback be coming from?
Dr. D, this is Mr. Cotter. Can you guys hear me? I just wanted to add something to what you're saying, and I think this goes for a lot of us that are really, on the edges. There's people in this space right now that might not even know who Rick is, and because this is not a regular UFO space. So, but and Mr. Fungi, maybe you could even back me up on this. You're a lot more well spoken on some of the things I'm about to say, which is, the general public that is not, that's, I hate to use the word, yeah, kind of like on the outskirts of the UFO disclosure community, and there's a lot of people in this room I see, and there's a lot of people in spaces on a daily basis that have their finger on the pulse of all of this.
Hey,
And you
bro,
guys,
if you want to ask a question, go for it. But I asked the question. If you're going to ask another one, go ahead.
right. So okay. So my statement slash question to add to the layer of yours is, the amount of the three-letter agencies that have been running this world for centuries. This is the biggest topic of all of them. This is, for a lot of us, this is all just a show on TV. And there's layers behind it, and there's no way that somebody can tell me there's not many layers behind your exact question. Where does
Yeah,
that
there
come
are
from?
layers. We're just trying to ask Rick's whatever many layers he can unpeel for us. And I will say this, that he tries to take it as far as he can without getting himself in trouble. But I always appreciate that. But how far can you peel that onion, Rick?
Well, I think, first of all, Dr. Putoff works for DARPA. He has a number of special access programs. If he says too much about a particular program, SAP program, every single SAP program has a counterintelligence officer. All the Air Force operations projects have OS agents assigned to counterintelligence. I know the OSI agents are assigned to Lockheed Martin. I know the ones assigned to Raytheon. Hal has one. So it would start with that particular counterintelligence officer coming to him and saying, I watched Rogan's interview with you yesterday or whenever it was, and I heard you say this, 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 and this. I don't think you should have said this, 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 and this. And so then you have to be very careful not to say this, and this in the future. Something like that. That's where it would start. Now, it was something that violated the contract and it was very serious in nature, then somebody above that level, probably somebody within the U.S. Air Force Scientific Research Division, would contact Hal and say, "Hey, Hal, you screwed up." And then if it was something that was against the law, the FBI would come. But I don't think it would ever come to that. I didn't hear him say anything that would be that bad. But that's how it would work.
Did that answer it, Connor? Or did that help with?
Well, no, it's just Mr. D was Dr. D was and I'm sorry, Dr. D, if I kind of like I wasn't trying to step on your toes. I was just kind of
No, it's all good. It's all good. No
I
worries
was just
about it.
excited because I a lot of us that are paying attention, really paying attention to not just only this subject, just the world subjects of all types of disclosures and the layers and the layers and the layers. And I've gone down the Operation Gladio faucet for the last year with Colonel Walker, I think her name Watkins, or whatever she does, the weekly spaces, and the education of Operation Gladio that she has provided to the amount. And I just even saying this word in this space, there's going to be probably like 5, secret listeners trying to figure out it's crazy, like the amount of layers and the amount of deception in from so many angles that this particular subject to me is a lot of these folks that are on TV, on these podcasts. Yeah, like I like what Rick said tonight. I learned something, which is, some people on the inside are trying to get inside further to move the needle, right? But ultimately, the gatekeepers, and that's encouraging to hear. But ultimately, the gatekeepers, that most of this is a show, in my opinion, and that's what's the frustrating part. I think a lot of the community is getting to, but with people like you guys that are enthusiastic and trying to help as much as you can. And there's, people are coming out that are having, experiences, and Twitter and X having people having a platform here to tell their story and get the word out. Like that to me is way more important than, Mr. CNN Lou on TV saying whatever the hell he wants to say. That to me, that does nothing for me, in my opinion. And I think a lot of us, that speaks for some of us here that have said that, have had side conversations, like that's entertainment. Like, let's talk to some people here in these spaces that have had experiences. And it's just frustrating and fascinating at the same time. And um, but I appreciate everybody's effort, and we're all trying to figure it out too. But I've kind of given up on anything that goes with the GOBT.
Well, I'm trying to obfuscate, so
Yeah, a lot of times, man, people are just getting in the subject, so you don't want to like throw them information that's over their head. A lot of this just relates back to normal everyday shit. We've been lied to for hundreds of years, thousands of years. We're all trying to figure this out together. So that's what it is. I do more listening than talking a lot of times, and just pick up on certain other things and conversations and piece it together. And then whenever I build up enough questions, I'm like, all right, I got this, this, and this. Maybe you can help me fill the gap, man. And Rick, you've always been awesome at helping us fill those gaps. So even though people give you a lot of shit for what you used to do, my hat's off to you because you show up every time, man. You're here. You'll go 4 or 5 hours. We've talked till 3 in the morning. I don't know how you do it, man. I honestly don't. My hats are off to you, man.
Well, thank you, thank you. By the way, that incident, Dr. Dulce, that we discussed, that happened in New York City. The woman's name was Linda Neapolitan, and she alleged that on November 30th, 1989, aliens abducted her from her Manhattan apartment. They floated her out her 12th floor window on a beam of light. and lifted her into an orange spacecraft near the Brooklyn Bridge. Bud Hopkins investigated that thing thoroughly, along with many, many others. In fact, there was a mini series done on Netflix in 2024, just last year, about that incident. But
did you ever
were,
get to look at any documents that would verify any of the information? You know what I mean? Did you ever get any like inside that you thought okay, yeah, this is real?
the FBI agent who worked in foreign counterintelligence in New York City, who he wasn't the lead investigator, but he was one of the investigators that came into the now within the New York City Police Department. There's a special investigations division, SID, and they're responsible for high level and very sensitive investigations. Not necessarily UFOs, but things out of the ordinary. So they're the ones that started, or at least responded to this, and then they got the FBI involved. Well, this FBI agent, he's in our advanced working group. He's up there in age. He's really great guy, but I sat around a table with him once over a few beers, and he told me and others, and he told us about what he thought happened. And the strange thing about it is, when he did his report and sent it into his field office, the New York City field office, and then it went from there to the Washington headquarters, the Air Force showed up in January. Now this is in November of '89. In January 1990, the Air Force OSI shows up in the New York City field office and took over the investigation. Now, and he got out of it. He said, "Well, the Air Force is taking it, so here it is. It's all yours. I'm out of it." He was never briefed on anything after that. It was the government. And OSI works for the intelligence community, and so they took it over. And now, I think in the Netflix series, they do mention the government. I don't think they mention OSI, but they mention the CIA. The CIA wouldn't be doing it; would be OSI, because the OSI can operate in the United States. The CIA can't, unless it's terrorist activity. So that's kind of a strange case. And Bill Moore, as I said before, Bill Moore did I'm trying to find that Focus article that he really dug deep into it. And he actually interviewed Linda Neapolitan, that girl, and she has a heck of a background. If you really dig into her background, you'll find out that one of her relatives was James Angleton, who was the chief of the counterintelligence for the CIA from 1951 until 1974. That just, that puts the conspiracy theory into effect, so to speak. So that's just,
you need to make a movie about that part right there.
Yeah, they do, but he didn't mention that in the miniseries, as far as I know.
Wanted to announce that I'll be closing the space in about 20 minutes, so that's how long you have to unearth the secrets of the universe. Hurry, quick!
Hey, Rick, have you heard anything on the Eureka Springs, Arkansas UFO experiences, or any of those cases out there?
I personally never investigated it, but I've talked to some people that have.
You know what was odd about that? That's, I live about an hour from there. That's where I saw my first craft orb, whatever you want to call it. And this was back in 2008. I never told a soul up until I came to UFO Twitter. And this is kind of where I told my story at, man. And after I told it, like there were multiple people that were around that area. They're like, "Oh man, like we've seen similar things out there. Not quite exact, but real similar. But it seems like there's a hot spot out there, man."
Yeah, I I spoke to I can't think of his name. Um, they have a conference out there every year. In fact, I think his name is Bill Pitts. Is it Bill Pitts or yeah? Anyways,
Possibly.
uh, he um, he invited me out there. I think in 20, I don't know, it was right during just I think it was 21. It was right after, right during COVID, and I didn't go. So I only know the other people told me about it. I haven't really investigated it myself.
Yeah, I think the last conference out there is when Rob Heatherly's son tried punching a dude or something. I know it turned into a shit show out there, but I missed it. I missed the last one.
Well, if Rob was it was if you said Rob was trying to punch somebody, that makes sense.
Yeah, I just
Who's
caught the story secondhand. So it's either him or his son. Somebody tried knocking somebody out at the
No,
conference. So
wow.
who's
Was
the
Milk Fart there? If Milk Fart was there, then I'm gonna have to be there next time.
Yeah, I guess it happened
who's the
every year.
number one? Sorry, fuck. Who's the number one person you want to punch in ufology? Go.
Well, he's dead
Yes.
now.
Oh, I love it.
Phil Class, I would have. In fact, I got into it with him at a UFO convention uh, several years ago before he passed away, and I said to him, if you were a younger person, because he was somewhat older than me, I would take you out and you and I'd have a good old fashioned fist fight. And he said, "Well, I don't fight." I said, "Well, I'll just punch you in the nose then." So I think that was the closest I ever came to punching anybody.
that's a good one, actually.
I love it. And what kind of bullshit was he trying to propagate that caused you to want to kick his ass, so to speak?
Well, he had this woman, and I didn't know who she. Well, I knew who she was, but I wasn't connecting her with the story he was telling. Allegedly, she was in fact a abductee, and I had interviewed her in 1987. I was still working for the government, and I interviewed her, and I did a report, and in my report, I considered her in intelligence. When you rate somebody, uh, it goes from an A1 to an F6. F6 meaning there's zero credibility. I don't believe a word they say. A1 is they're God. Okay. So I rated her as an F6. And I, went up to headquarters and well, she in 1990 at a UFO convention, 1991, sometime in there, uh, she showed up and she submitted a FOIA request and got that report. And she was very, very critical. She claimed I lied, I falsified the report, and it just went on and on. And well, jump ahead 15 years or so. Phil Class brings this up in a UFO conference because he's always allowed to speak at him, and most people walk out, but a lot of people sit there to see what kind of bullshit he was spreading. Anyways, um, and he spoke before I did. Well, he spoke, and then a couple of days later I spoke. And so when he brought that up, it really pissed me off because I know that it didn't happen the way she claimed. Well, lo and behold, my very, 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 very best friend, Wendell Stevens, had also submitted a FOIA request along with a tape recording of our interview with her, my interview with her. I didn't know he had it, but he told me after the Phil Class thing, he said, I got that tape recording. And I thought, how the hell did you get that window? He said, I got it. You want to hear it? So that night we were up in the room listening to it. So then I thought, okay. Now she wasn't there, but Phil was. So I approached Phil and told him, I want you, before I speak, to get up and redact everything you said about that. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. And that's when I, kind of threatened to kick his ass. But so I went up and I played it. Well, unfortunately, Phil left. He knew something was going on, and he just left. So I wanted to embarrass him from everyone, but he left before. So that's that story. And she lied, and I don't know whatever happened to her, if she's passed away or whatever, because she was up there in age back then. But I don't know whatever happened to her.
So who's the modern day Phil Class? I mean, like top three. I mean, I'll give you. Who do you think's trying to the wannabe Phil Class in ufology right now?
Well, there's a lot of wannabes out there.
What about Mick West? Is he part of the?
Mick,
would you say?
yeah,
would you
I
put him
would
in the
say
top three?
absolutely. Mick West would be the number one, because no matter what anyone says, he just tries to discredit him with lies, because he doesn't know anything. He just makes up stories to try to discredit people. Yeah, I think Mick West would be the number one. There's that woman. Can't even remember her name. She spoke on a podcast some last year ago. I'll think of her name in a minute. She'd probably be the second one. She's Canadian.
I can't think of who you're saying. I can't. What about Green Street? Is Green Street in the running? Do we are Lou Angeles? I mean,
well, Lou Angeles, yeah. I actually think Lou Angeles is he's credited so bad that it sounds like works for the government. He's like a bull in the China shop. He doesn't know what he says at halftime, and I think
it's so obvious. Either that, or he's just pretending. He just wants people to believe that because he's trying so hard. I don't know.
Yeah, and what he said about Elizondo, all that, and some of it's true. That's the whole story between him and, but then some of it is absolutely not true. So that's.
So he's running his own deception operation, whether he's getting paid or not. There is definitely deception coming out of that camp.
Definitely. And as far as Green Street, I don't know. I always get along with him. He has said some things that's, but he at least tries to get some facts straight. And so I don't know. I don't think he's being controlled by anybody. I think he's out there on his own.
Okay, and the last but not least, I think the current number one, debunker star on X Spaces is UFO Shane. Have you heard of this guy, UFO Shane? I mean, he's
yeah. Sure.
What do you think of that guy?
He sent me. I had to block him because he sent me one day. I think we were on the space, and after he didn't get a chance to talk because Jay Just or Logan kicked him off, and he was trying to ask all these dumb questions, and then he sent me all these DMs. I mean, Jesus Christ, there were probably 50. Yeah, he sent me one and I answered. I mean, I'm trying to be nice and answer something, and then he sent me another one contradicting it, and he kept sending me. So I had to block him. I mean, the guy just was nuts, going crazy, trying to make a point, but there's a limit to everything, and he went way beyond that limit.
Now, whatever happened with Paranormal Chris? Is he still trying to do the debunking stuff? Is he, Eric? Have you talked with him?
Yeah, we was like Average Chris or Below Average Chris or whatever.
Chris, that's it.
The DOD guy. Apparently, that guy was DOD. Did you know that, Rick? That one guy coming in here, he had weak. He brought the weak sauce, as far as I'm concerned. He was shitty. He was shitty at his job.
Yeah, yeah. He was just an admin clerk or something. Yeah.
An
Apparently,
admin clerk.
Doing his
An
dirty.
admin clerk. That's worse than. Oh, shit, that's funny.
Well, I asked him. I said, "You said I work for DOD. I mean, I had high level security clearance, all this stuff. I work in security clearance office or whatever, something like that." I paraphrase it. I said, "Well, what's the Code of Federal Regulation 32, paragraph 1006?" He said, "Oh, you just made that up." So no, just Google it. I mean, and so people were in there Googling it, and it is that's the entire federal law governing security clearances, and he says I made it up, and then he left the space. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Jay Just somebody was control Logan or Mello or anyway. So that just proves that he wasn't who he or didn't have the knowledge that he claimed he had.
Well, he did somehow he figured out that at some future in the past that I was a mattress scammer. Did I ever tell you about that time he told me I was a mattress scammer?
No, 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 but
The true story. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, these guys, it's funny. They come and go in these spaces. It's like the microcosm of deception. Where you get people that just for whatever reason. It's the Wild West of ufology. Twitter Spaces.
yeah, him and there's who's that other guy that claims that he knows science. He's a amateur astronomer and amateur physicist.
Oh, Science Bob
No,
McGuire.
no, 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 not Science Bob. No, no, I know him very well. Some other guy, young kid. I can't. He was. He,
Ashton Forbes.
yeah, yeah. He would ask me all these questions about math because he knew I taught math, and some of the things he claims. In fact, I actually gave him my email, and he would send me these things that absolutely didn't make any sense whatsoever mathematically. And I'm not a quantum physicist, so I mean, I know up to a point. I'm not. I taught math. Then he wanted to get in my class, and I said, well, okay. No problem. The first thing you got to do is join the military. Once you're in the military, after 6 months, you can put in for the continuing education program. And then you go to this website and you sign up for my class. And as long as you have all these prerequisites, I'll get you in. He says, well, I'm not going in the military. I said, well, you want to take my class? You have to. It's only for military people. And so then now, of course, I teach privately. I teach gifted kids, but during that time, I told him to do that, and he said, "Well, no." So he would send me all these things email wise, and none of them made any sense. And finally, I told him, I said, "Listen, you need to take algebra 1 and algebra 2, and then calc 1, and organize your thoughts and add a little realism into these formulas that you're trying to send me to solve, and then maybe I'll be able to help you."
I thought that was nice of you, Rick. At least you didn't just shut off all communication. So
Oh no, I tried to because some of these things he was sending me was he copied. I think he just went someplace to a website and picked out a formula, and he didn't even have the characters right in there, the thetas and the different Greek letters and so forth. He'd make it up, and it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And in fact, when he first sent me this formula, I thought, wow, I never seen this thing. So I sent it to Hal, and Hal says, it's gook. There's nothing in here that makes sense. I said, well, I kind of thought that way. So then I sent back to him saying, I think you made a mistake on this one. You need to, rewrite it or something. But then I realized that he didn't know what he was talking about.
now, Rick, is there a possibility that it's actually a sketch from the Rendlesham incident? It could have just been alien, and you guys haven't decoded it yet. Is that a possibility?
I don't think so.
All right, just
I,
trying to exhaust all
I,
options.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
all.
yeah. I think we know. Believe it or not, and I'm not giving away any secrets. There is a there's a special access program dealing with extraterrestrial mathematics and science. So we know something about. I don't know that we know it all, and I don't personally, but there are people in the program like Hal and others that know what at least one particular species of extraterrestrials, math or science, would look like. So I don't know that, and again, I'm not briefed into it, but I know that there are people we as an intelligence community know something about that.
Wow, it's pretty sweet, man. All right, guys, I think Naga's about to wrap it up, but Eric,
That was a
any
lot of
final?
fun. I mean, I thanks Rick for popping in. That was great. Thank
Yeah, it
you,
was fun. It
Naga.
was fun.
And
Yeah.
I just want to apologize publicly that Rick called me out tonight. I'm not going to deny it that I am an asshole sometimes, and I don't mean to be. I'm actually a good guy, but sometimes I just either want to get someone to laugh or I want to stir the shit up. But I'm not really an asshole. I just pretend to be sometimes. Just want to make that clear.
You just play one of the movies, right?
I like to see what it's like, to be an asshole. Just to try it out. It's like a dress or a pair of slacks or whatever, a cap. Just oh yeah, it works. Nah, I don't like it. Put it away.
Heck yeah! Thanks for popping up, Rick. Thanks, Mr. Dolt. What was he calling you, Dolte?
Dr. Dulce.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
Dulce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a whole bunch of DMs about do you want to start another space or keep this? I don't know. That's not my decision.
Yeah, if you're gonna hang up, Nog, I'll open up the space. I'll go ahead and host the space if you're gonna close, Naga.
Yeah, go get weird.
Thank you for your patience, Naga. By the way, I know this is not normally what you do.
Thank you very much, Naga. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just
I'm gonna leave.
My contribution to the PSYOP. Thank you, everyone.
You're very welcome, Naga. You have a good night and good week.
Any final words?
No, man. Had a good time. But I'll jump over. Everybody jump over to Eric's space. He's going to continue on for part 2. Thanks.
Coolio. All right, I'm going to say a prayer. It's in the Sanskrit. That's fun. Om Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Bhagavat Shri Nityananda Paramashiva Parukarpanamastu Om Nityanandam. Good night, everybody.
Good night.